All right. Here we go. The Spectral Penitentiary. One of the hardest dungeons in the game, oozing with engaging mechanics and bolstering with personality. It sounds AI generated. I promise you it's not. Now, I would love to cover the entire Spectral Penitentiary, Spec Pen for short, by the way, in one video. But if I did, you would be left with a guide that is over an hour long, which I will do at some point. But for now, let's keep it simple. Let's stick with the North Wing. This is the legendary guide to the Spectral Penitentiary, Oculon edition. All right, so starting off, why even run this dungeon? Like, what am I here for? Why do I want to do this? Well, my friend, calm down. There's so much upside I can't even begin to tell you. First of all, it features 10 different unique white bags. 10. Not to mention that one of those white bags is used in 4 different crafting recipes. So if you think about it like that, really, there's 14. But it's a very hard dungeon. So for you newcomers, you new boys, you know, the ones that are in a baby cradle, licking a rainbow lollipop, maybe refrain for a little bit, right? You know, maybe go outside, smell the roses, touch some grass. I know you won't do that, but I can still suggest it. But since it is the North Wing edition of the Spec Pen, we're only going to cover 3 of the white bags, because the Spectral Penitentiary has 4 wings. Each boss from their respective wings drop 2 white bags, and they all collectively drop a 3rd. So for the North Wing, these white bags are Command Cornea, which is extremely powerful with the right setup. Basically, the more MP you have, the more damage it does. It scales like crazy. You get some percentage mana regen enchants with this. You're regenerating mana at light speed, and it just does so much damage, and it covers a massive area. Really, really cool white bag. One of my single favorite items in the game, and the only reason I ever play Mystic. Oh, it's a Mystic Orb, by the way, if I forgot to mention that. Secondly, we have Ocular Entrapment. This one, I think, is slept on. Heavily slept on. That's because it has a very unique effect. Basically, when you right-click, you throw out an eyeball. And this eyeball will release a pulse for 1200 damage. But it doesn't go away after, it stays. And so what's interesting is that you can use the ability again, and it will throw another eyeball, which will do its own burst, but it also triggers the burst of the other eyeball. And so if you just keep doing this, you keep throwing out eyeballs, and they keep triggering off each other, and you end up doing like potentially 6k damage every single time you use your ability. It also slows. The slow range on this is really small, and I'll probably make a video dedicated to how this trap works and how unique it is. But for this guide, I'm just going to keep it simple. That's how it works. Really cool, really underrated. Give it a shot if you have it. And it's just really fun. And then lastly, we have the Vial of Soul Extract, which is a really cool item. It's a crafting reagent that can be used for Haunted Cemetery items to upgrade them into stronger forms. So Soul's Guidance becomes Deliverance, Plague Poison becomes Pandemic Poison, Resurrected Warrior's Armor becomes Boundless Vessel, and Amulet of Dispersion becomes Amulet of Restoration. And these are all just strict upgrades of their predecessors, including the Amulet of Restoration, which I've made a YouTube short about. I'm sure you guys know by now. This item is omega busted. It's ridiculous. My favorite ring in the game by far. It's not even close. It's just insta-pop protection. Basically, if you're one of those people where you load in and you pop in the first 2 seconds, don't worry, you're not alone. Then instead of dying, you have 2 seconds to ask yourself, do I want to stay here? Is this worth it? Or should I just leave? And then the answer every time is just leave. One dungeon is not worth all of the other dungeons in time and effort that went into getting you to where you are now. If your amulet triggers, get out. Don't say you're sorry. Accept that that's the way it is and live to see another day. But insanely good item. And that's all the whites you can expect from this wing. Aside from that though, the minions drop really good armor, as well as the boss. The minions have a tendency to drop tier 11 weapons, tier 12 armor, tier 5 abilities. Really good gear. And minions are very numerous, so actually getting your hands on a usable piece of gear is maybe not as hard as you would think. Oculon himself drops Wisdom and Mana Potions. And lastly, he also drops Alchemist Assassin Set Shards, which is a really cool assassin set that, catch this, has a toad as its main weapon. Are you fucking kidding me? What? It has a toad? That's so badass. That's so cool. And it is. It's also got a blowpipe, and you're just this little goblin guy holding a toad. It's a cool set. But that's all the loot. The Spectral Penitentiary itself has a difficulty of 8 tombstones, which, according to the game, puts it in line with Steamworks and Lost Halls, which I think is a pretty fair assessment. I always tell people, you can do Spec Pen if you can do Moonlight Village sometimes, and if you're pretty comfortable with Lost Halls. It's a good mix of both of those sort of styles, but if you're pretty good at Lost Halls and you can sometimes do MV, you should be fine in Spec Pen, after the initial learning curve, of course. But with all that, that's pretty much everything. Let's get into the actual dungeon. All right, so you load in, head north, end up in the tutorial room. The tutorial room just shows you the objective and how to complete it. So in Oculon's wing, the objective is to destroy the turrets. If you destroy enough turrets, the boss spawns. And if you do it fast enough, you get hard mode. So destroy the turrets and then head north to initiate it. The timer for hard mode, by the way, I don't think actually starts until you destroy the lever to the rest of the floor. And then as I'm running around here, I'm looking at my minimap a lot, seeing where these little triangles are, because those tell you where the turrets are. And there's usually 2 turrets per room, but sometimes there's even 3, sometimes there's just 1. But you want to try to check the 4 corners, check the middle. Don't fully search a room if it's going to be a big time cost and you're trying to get hard mode. If you're not trying to get hard mode, do whatever you want. But when you're clearing for these turrets and you're going from room to room, try to avoid the rooms at the edges. In Oculon's wing, you start in the center room, and then imagine the crafting recipe for a Minecraft helmet. Those are the rooms you want to travel to. And anything outside of that, you want to avoid, because the outer rooms, they generally have 1 to 2 turrets, so they have less. But also you're going to end up in a dead end, and then you'll have to retrace all that ground you covered, and it's a massive waste of time. And if you're trying to get hard mode, I really recommend not doing that. But other than that, the enemies here are quite spooky. You want to watch out for the little octopus-looking guys, eyeball men. They fire slowing shots, but they fire in like a pretty tight fork towards you. So it's not too hard to dodge. And there's these big like warding guys that will chase you. And those guys can be pretty scary if you're on a rogue class or some slower class like that with low defense. Those guys, the big hooded ones, those guys are probably the most threatening. They slow, I think they curse. Even if they don't, they are very, very threatening. Keep your distance from those guys. And you see me heading through the middle here, but honestly, if you're newer to the dungeon, I wouldn't recommend really going into the middle. That's where you can see very clearly, that's where most of the enemies are, and it can be hard to get in and get out. So just play it safe. Stick to the corners. Those little George Washington looking guys, they just fire silencing shots. Not a big deal. And the little nerds are actually more threatening than you would expect. They shoot a sort of trident attack that bleeds too. So keep your distance from those guys. But yeah, obviously there's no enemy in here that you're going to want to sit on. But that's not how the game works. There's these little police guys that summon chains around them and summon minions. These guys can be pretty threatening. They also shoot a sort of trident attack. Keep your distance from those guys. But really, none of these enemies really shoot any predictive shots that I can remember at least. So the best course of action in pretty much all situations is to just hold W and go in sort of like a serpentine pattern, you know? Little editor's note here. There's also these wandering eyeball enemies. These guys are like top priority to avoid. They shoot out sicken shots, which are pretty rough, but they also shoot out petrifying shots. And the ones that petrify you, they have a little hint of red at the edge. So if you're being chased by one of these guys, don't panic. Do your best to avoid the slightly red shots, and you'll be all right. This is also the only enemy that can follow you from room to room. Normally enemies get stuck when they are near a lever to another room. Using this knowledge, you can kind of camp the levers. If you're ever in a tight spot, you can sit near a lever and know that you are safe there. The enemies, they can't reach you. This is actually very important. It's a very important tip. If you're near a lever, they can't come too close to you. They can still, their shots will hit you, but you're relatively safe if you're sitting in that little corridor between 2 rooms, except for this enemy. This guy will hunt you down at Mach 10, and he is lethal. But he'll also eventually go away. He'll shrink down and then poof, somewhere else. Where does he go? I don't know. I don't know if anybody knows. But what's important is that he's away from you. All right, back to the video. But after you do all that, you end up in the boss room. You don't have to destroy these turrets here, but if you get kind of close to them, they will start attacking you, so might as well kill them. And then Oculon has 6 different phases. All right, he's got 2 phases per color. He's got his base color of like this yellowish. He's got his green form and his red form. Each of those has 2 phases. This one here, he shrinks down, and you're going to want to look at your minimap because it will tell you, that little skull on the minimap tells you exactly where he is before you can even see him. So in this phase, There's those white shots coming out in a star pattern. Those are like pretty strict walls. They don't hurt too bad, but you want to avoid them, obviously. The green shots, slow. High priority to dodge the green shots. And most notably, don't sit on any of the eyeballs. The eyeballs, as you can see, are constantly spawning new shots on top of them. So you can sit next to an enemy, but just don't sit on them. And the boss's shots do way more damage than the minions. So really, really don't sit on the boss. There's also shots coming from the corners. It's not too big of a deal, but if you're really struggling with this phase and you don't want to keep up with Oculon to deal damage and you're just trying to survive, I do recommend just staying near the outskirts of the room, kind of where the red carpet meets the wood. Just kind of hang around that area, you should be pretty good. But this is a great phase to deal damage. He's super vulnerable in this phase, and once you get it down, it's not bad at all. All right, this phase, I don't know what to call the phases, by the way. I don't really have, like this, I guess I would call this shapes. As you can see, he spawned 3 different shapes. He spawned a red circle, a yellow diamond, and a green triangle. These shapes can vary. It can be an X, it can be a plus, it can be an I, like the letter I, not a physical eyeball. But you want to remember which colors go with which shapes. And actually, you don't even have to do that. That's how you're intended to do it. But what I did when I was learning is I just took each of these shapes and I kind of overlaid them on top of each other in my mind. So if you take these shapes, you have a diamond and a circle, overlay those. It's almost like a shield with like points at the corners, and then overlay the triangle on that, and it's like a shield with spikes at the corners, but it has just 2 more corners at the bottom. So that means in the top corners, you're going to be pretty safe. And I know it doesn't necessarily seem like it because the diamond and the triangle are filled in, but they actually are hollow in the middle. I don't know why they included a shot in the middle of the diamond shape if it's not filled in. Very misleading. But by doing that, kind of overlaying the shapes on top of each other, you can understand where your safe zones are for any given shape. Or if you want to, you can track, all right, red is circle, yellow is diamond, green triangle. And over time, you'll just remember the order, like it goes red, yellow, green. Okay, so then you can just say circle, diamond, triangle. And so after he spawns these shapes, he'll start chasing you. He's pretty threatening in this phase. He's very chasey. The shots that show you the shapes don't actually damage you when he's just displaying what the shape is. But afterwards, they will definitely destroy you, so be careful. So you can see here, he sends out one of those eyeballs. He sends it to the middle. And it took me probably 50 spec pens, if not more, to realize that this is how the mechanic is intended to work. So if you've been running spec pens a lot and you never noticed this, you're not alone. I've run over like probably 500 spec pens at this point because it's my favorite dungeon. And I'm still learning shit sometimes. But he sends out yellow. Yellow, if you remember correctly, is the diamond shape. So he spawns these diamond shots. You have a little gap of time to react. On non-hard mode, you have a longer time to react. But he sends out the diamond shape. The shots that constitute the shape, by the way, sicken you and do 100 armor-piercing damage each. So very important that you don't eat these shots. And with Oculon being so chasey in this phase, it can be really difficult to navigate and kind of get through this, especially when you're getting pressed into a corner. You should treat the walls of the shape like actual static walls, like impassable barriers, because they essentially are, except they're even worse. A wall, you just run into a wall and you nexus when you get cornered. These walls, they don't stop you. They hurt you a lot though, and you will die. So just be aware of that. Circle's probably one of the best shapes because you can just run them in a circle, which is what you want to do with a lot of enemies in this game. But shapes like the plus or the X can be pretty difficult to wiggle your way around the boss. But he does that sort of shotgun attack where he follows you at a consistent speed. It's not too hard to dodge, but then he does the other one where he sort of leaps toward you this time and does the burst attack. That one, you want to play kind of like cat and mouse. You want to like stop, go, and just kind of bait him out to where you want him to be. That way, you know where he's going to be. You don't get cornered. It's a lot easier to predict rather than just holding a direction key the whole time. And then his last attack pattern is that, I don't even know what to call it, just spew of white shots. This one is pretty hard to dodge. There's a pattern to it, you can tell, but just try your best. Find the gaps where you can do it. All right, green phase. This one, he kind of sticks to a track. There's 5 different tracks along the room, and you want to position yourself at a 45-degree angle from where the boss is. And you want to be ideally outside the lines. You can kind of see there's these roads that are being paved. Avoid the green lines, obviously. But people tend to make this phase a lot more difficult than it needs to be. Like they sit in front of the boss and then they have to dodge a bunch, and really this phase is very easy. Don't worry about dodging the red shots, they do almost no damage, but if you just sit in a 45-degree angle from the boss, you end up just walking with him and never actually have to dodge anything. It's great. So super easy phase, pretty good for damage as well, but do be aware that if somebody else is sitting in front of the boss, then those side shots are going to go right for you if you're sitting at a 45-degree angle, so can kind of get PvP'd that way. All right, second yellow phase. This one is the most difficult by far. It's not even close. This one, there's multiple things going on here. He's shooting rings of red shots that bleed, and he's also at the same time periodically firing these spear-shaped attacks, and there's also arrows raining down from the sky and coming from the ground. It's a lot to take in, but there is some advice I can give with this. Basically, these arrows in the center of the room tell you if there's going to be a big white arrow traveling up or down, and you want to stay in the space in between the arrows. If there's two waves of arrows coming down at the same time, both from top and bottom, don't sit in the middle. That's where they all converge. You need to pick a side, either go top or go bottom, and this will give you adequate time to dodge in between. But like I said, it's hard to juggle all this with everything that's going on. But those spear-shaped attacks, I see a lot of people get messed up by those spear-shaped attacks. There's a timing to it though, and you want to run past him. You want to drag him as far as you can to the left or right before you cross over, because you want to buy yourself as much time as you need to heal and stuff like that, because you're almost guaranteed to take damage trying to cross over. But when you are crossing over, you want to run past him right after he fires the arrows. There is a space in between the arrows as well, so if you can't quite make it all the way, then you can try to stop there. It's a pretty tight fit, but just drag him all the way to the edge of the room and run past right after he fires the shots. And that's it for that phase. All right, other green phase, we have what I call Mario Kart. This phase, the boss constantly chases you. He's like a clock, a very deadly clock. Your main priority here is to stay ahead of the boss. If you ever get sat on by the boss or you have to run past him, you're almost definitely dead, because those green shots, they do about 170 damage. They do a lot of damage, and they're fired very frequently. So stay in front of the boss. That's priority number one. Aside from that, though, you have these landmines that are being planted by those little eyeballs that keep popping up, and these green shots that are being fired from the middle. You may think that they slow you because they're green, and that's what they did in other phases, but no, they don't slow you in this phase. They give you curse, and each of the landmines does 100 armor-piercing damage. It can be pretty rough, but I find this phase to be really fun. You might struggle with it at first, but just keep whatever distance you need to from the boss. You can see here, I'm trying to stay close to him because I'm trying to, allow myself to deal damage because of a melee class. But really, if you want to just full zoom around the outside and make sure this guy never touches you, if you want to be directly behind him, you want to be so far ahead of him that you're actually behind him, go for it. I'm sure that works, and it will buy you plenty of time if you ever get tripped up with some of the landmines and need time to recoup. And here we have the last phase. These phases are all in random order, so it happens to be the last phase this time, but it's not going to be the last phase every time. But I will say, he does have to go through every one of his phases before he can repeat a phase. So if he starts off with that Mario Kart phase we just saw, he has to do every other possible phase before he can go back to that. But here we are in this phase. I don't know what you want to call this, the Blossoming Lotus phase. He's firing shots that alternate rotating from right to left in circles. It looks pretty intimidating, but the way it ends up playing out is kind of just jiggle left and right in the same spot. Don't worry too much about moving laterally. Like, just focus on shifting left and right a little bit, just like the shots are doing, and I think you'll have a good time. But in this phase, there's these red eyeballs that are emerging towards him, shooting shots out all over the place, and these guys actually hurt a lot. Like, when you get a lot of these red eyeballs coming out, their damage does amount to something. But alongside these red eyeballs, there's also green eyeballs. These green eyeballs, you're meant to shoot. They want you to shoot them, because if you don't shoot them, then they'll go to the boss and he'll do a special shot pattern. But when this happens, the red eyeballs stop spawning. So I actually find it's very beneficial to let the green eyeballs go towards him and then do this little technique that I'll show you in a second. But a lot of people, they just kill the green eyeball, and if you have the DPS and you're confident in the dungeon, then yeah, kill the green eyeball, sure. But if you're struggling, just let it go, and then when it does go, he'll fire these rings of green shots, and they look very intimidating, right? Like they're moving in and out. It's very mesmerizing. but there's a technique to this. If you just head to the bottom of the room, right in the middle, where the carpet meets the wood, the shots will spread out around you. And then all you have to do is just step forward, step forward, step forward. And it's got a timing to it, like dun, dun, dun. One more time. Dun, dun, dun. Very easy. Once you just get that simple timing down, it makes this phase so much easier. I see a lot of people die to this phase. It's really not bad once you know that tip. And you can see that there's a lot less red eyeballs now because they stop spawning. And he'll usually do this about 2 times until the phase is over. But with that being said, you did it. Woo! Congrats! Nice. As all 6 phases of Oculon's fight, get your little blue bag, maybe your white bag. Better than I got. But this is just one boss of the Spectral Penitentiary. We got 3 more bosses that are just as awesome and unique. That's why it's my favorite dungeon. It's really unique in its mechanics, and the mechanics are really just fun to play. I'm a huge fan of Spec Pen and its design, and I hope they make more like it. But anyways, that's gonna do it. Thank you very much for watching this guide. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments maybe which wing of the Spec Pen you want to see next, and maybe I can make that the next one. But at some point, obviously I'll have all of them out. And at the end of it all, I'll make them all into one big guide that's probably going to be like an hour long that you can watch and maybe eat a bag of chips too. But anyways, that's it for me. Have a good day. Have a good night. And I'll see you guys in the next video.